Hello, I'm Beverly Hosford, and today I have Madison Cleckler with me. Hi, Madison.
Hi, Bev. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good. Madison's in Alabama, which is pretty awesome. Somewhere I got to visit a while ago. And she's a pre and postnatal exercise specialist. She's a birth doula and a mom of two, which is such an awesome combination of specialties. And through strength, education, and support, her mission is to build a community of awesome women in all stages of motherhood who help and support one another. In Madison's time off, she enjoys being outside, baking, and listening to good music. So, definitely my kind of woman.
All good.
After my own heart. So, we're going to talk about body awareness today a little bit. So, I'm wondering what body awareness means to you and the work you do with parents and babies, and maybe there's another term you use. Just tell me all about it.
Yeah. Usually I just kind of say listen to your body. That's what I coined body awareness as because it can be very hard as a parent to add another thing into your schedule, another thing to be aware of other than your kids. You're always trying to create that awareness with them. So it's just tuning in and listening at times. It can be really tough to notice what's going on, but not just notice what's going on, actually listen to what the cues that your body is telling you to do.
Mm.
Rest or eat or don't exercise today or do exercise today or you need to go outside and get off of your desk, which is what my body's been telling me lately. So yeah, it's just tuning in, listening, and then taking those cues and actually moving and doing something
Mm.
about it, whether it's something little or something a little bit bigger.
That's such a good point about like don't just listen, but actually, well, listen, but then actually do something. And do you find people are fairly receptive when you like have you found some ways that people are able to do that better after you share that message?
Um, well, with me, I'm a very stubborn individual, so it was incredibly hard for me to translate listening to doing.
Mm.
And it's still something I work on every day. With a lot of my clients, it's a little bit easier because I can give them tiny things that they can work on. For me, it's like I always go to this grandiose place. If I have to do all the things right, I have to have my shoulders down and my rib over my hips and all these kinds of things. But for others, for my clients, I feel like there is that ease into it where I'm saying, if you're doing the dishes or you're picking up your kiddo, just do a quick check in. How am I feeling? Is my back hurting? And then listen and take from those cues to do something like stack your ribs over your hips, pull your shoulders down. And so that makes it kind of easy for them to translate that listening into doing.
That's awesome. I see. So, yeah, it was great to hear some of the cues that you give people when they're like, so do you get a lot of people that are complaining about back pain or low back? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my population that I deal with, it's a lot of moms going through transitions from one kid or two to two kids, two to three, or more than that. And they're dealing with diastisis recti or pelvic floor dysfunction. And so those little tiny things are really good for them to pick up on. Not only is it really easy self care for them to add into their day, but it helps manage their symptoms while they're going from day to day and doing all of their daily tasks. Because it is, mom life is hard. It's exercise.
Yes. And tuning is not always so easy. So, when did you first discover this concept of like body awareness or listening to your body? Do you have a story or a memory or anything, a teacher or a mentor that you would like to share?
Mhm. My biggest mentor was Jessie Mundell, and she was my postnatal coach. But as I was thinking about all of this, the seeds of body awareness kind of go back to when I was in college. I was pregnant with my daughter and doing advanced anatomy, so I was dissecting, and I did a lot of anatomy work, and it was just kind of picking up and seeing how those muscles worked and where they attach to the body and what they do and how that impacts the way the body moves and how the nerves run into that and what can happen, like just the little things that can happen to the body and the way it moves. And then kind of going into your course, backed that up a little bit more, just kind of visualizing what could be lengthening, what could be shortening, what could be going on with the body. And so those little seeds were sown throughout my life. And it just kind of all came together when I did the postnatal course and after Eli was born, because my body had been going through more changes, and actually translating the being aware to doing was something that I was actively working on. And so for me, that was kind of the biggest moment that was like, oh, well, I actually need to listen and do. And that's what body awareness is. It isn't just listening, because I can listen all day and ignore the cues, but I have to actually do and be aware of how my body feels at any particular moment. So that was it was her course that took that to another level for me, I feel like.
In her course, was she teaching a lot about anatomy and physiology, or was she teaching a lot about the mind-body connection? What really spoke to you from that course?
She did all of it. It was from an anatomy and physiology perspective, which I love. I'm huge on that. But for her, it was more the mental connection to the physical. And a lot of it was about food freedom was what impacted me the most. Intuitive eating, because I have had issues in the past where I have not done that. And so that was it was both a body and mind thing for me that just melded together in that course in that moment, that I was like, oh, it's all the things. It's not just one piece of the puzzle. It's being aware of your entire, like, I have an entire whole self that I haven't been aware of. I've never put those pieces together. So I think it was just all of it, connecting the physical and the mental. It was like a click. It was just crazy.
That's awesome. So you're a practitioner, and you've already been so humble with us about how you're stubborn about following, listening to your signals, which I still love, because it's so easy to be like, my hip hurts and just complain about it, or my back hurts and just complain about it, or like, I don't have enough energy and complain about it, but then it's like doing something about it. So people come to you to do something about it, but what do you do for yourself to practice body awareness and to actually listen?
Yeah. Some weeks that actually doesn't happen. I don't listen all the time. What I love walking. Walking is one of my favorite moments where I can just kind of let go and tune out and tune in at the same time. It's just, it kind of balances my hormones. It makes me feel a little more sane. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when that happens, when I don't get to walk during the week, I can feel that in my body, how that breaks down. Self-care is a huge thing for me. If I let my self-care go, I notice a couple days in, it's like, oh, my body's telling me something's going on. I need to actually start taking care of myself again. It's so easy to get lost in the shuffle of taking care of tiny people and trying to help them be more aware of their bodies and their minds, that you just kind of forget about your own self. I really like playing with weighted movements.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been really loving kettlebells and Turkish get-ups lately because they mimic everyday movements. And for me, it seems crazy because there's so many steps to those kinds of movements, but I can let myself go in that moment and think, what does my body feel right now, and how can I mimic that to my everyday movements and make those feel a little bit stronger and a little bit better, and help me reduce symptoms if I'm experiencing them. So that's kind of the biggest two things, is walking and playing with weighted movements, playing with weights.
Yeah, you have a really strong connection to the physical body and physical movement. That's awesome. That's great. So when you're teaching your clients about body awareness, what's your go-to, or what approach do you take when you're sharing it with others?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing I teach all of my clients is how to connect to their core and their pelvic floor, because that's kind of the foundation of where everything else comes from. And so that's kind of it. And I get a lot of people who are like, I really don't understand how to do this. And it took me a very long time to figure out how to do that. And then it's just kind of listening to their body as they move, as they go through the gym. And I'm talking to them about, how does your pelvis feel? How does your belly feel if we shift it this way, or if we stack it this way, or if we pull the shoulders this way? How do you feel? Does it reduce your symptoms, or does it increase yours? So I spend a lot of time asking, like, doing little small tweaks to my clients, and then asking, is it better, worse, or the same?
Mm.
Just an easy question to answer, and then it clicks, and then I'm like, oh, it does feel better if I do this tiny little thing. And that kind of translates into their daily life, where they're like, oh, I can do this tiny thing, and ask, does it feel better, worse, or the same? And that is kind of how I teach people, listen to these tiny little cues, these tiny little movements, what they do to your body, and it can be an easy thing to add to your day and just make life a little bit easier, I feel like.
Yeah, I like that you get them to notice it instead of telling them like, this is the right position or this is the right movement. You ask them like, what feels best, having your pelvis here, here, or there, and then that helps to encourage them to be more independent. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
such
I mean, there is no right for everybody. So as much as I can tout one posture, it may just not jive for a person. It may make their symptoms worse. And you can't just be in one position, in one plane of motion, in one posture all day, every day. You're going to be in different movements. You're going to be bending your back as you pick up a kid sometimes during the day. And I don't want people to think that that's not okay. I want them to be able to see what that's doing to their body. And if they're picking up that kid with a rounded back and it hurts, then they can do this and it'll make it a little bit better.
Sure.
So I don't ever want anybody to be fearful of movement and how it affects their body, because I just don't think that's what it's about. Movement should be simple. It should be easy. It should make your life better.
Yeah, it seems like you should spend time training it to like an ideal position and then just let it go and it kind of knows what to do, hopefully, your body.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So set those foundations and sessions and then yeah, don't have people feel so nervous about it. That's really, I love that philosophy. So that being said, can there be too much body awareness or can it be negative?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely. I know I overthink. And going back to that, if people do get scared of movements and they overthink their movements and they end up doing completely the opposite of what they need to do, or tensing up something that doesn't need to be tensed up before you do. I have a lot of people, including myself, who are big glute clenchers, and that's kind of hard to out-train. And if you think about, I have a lot of people, including myself, who think about hinging and immediately squeeze the glutes and go, and then they're moving straight from their low back. So being too hyper aware of something that you should be doing can actually be a trigger for doing it wrong, I feel like, for a lot of people. And myself, it's pelvic floor related. So if I actually think about exhaling on exertion sometimes and really, really think about it, I'm bearing down on the pelvic floor instead of lifting. And so for me, it's that thinking about it too much, I'll do the opposite of it. Just trying too hard, I guess.
Yeah, that seems like it fits right back into what we just talked about, which is the idea that like you work on these things and then sometimes you just let it go and let the body pick up on what you did and that feels good and let the body do that. That's really awesome. So I'm wondering if the word yin means anything to you. It's a word that I think about a lot when I think about body awareness.
Mm-hmm. To me, it means balance. I know yin is supposed to be actually the kind of the dark part of it, but for me, yin brings just a sense of balance and the sense of two wholes coming together and or two halves creating a whole, two parts of the body creating one thing. For me, everything is always body related. So, of course, yin and yang is like one piece is not happy and one piece is happy, and we have to figure out a way to balance the two. And as much as I sometimes don't like the word balance because it's very hard for me to find it in my life, and I feel like maybe sometimes I don't have to think too hard about finding it. But yeah, that's kind of where yin plays into me. It's just that balance.
Yeah, that's great. It is very much, it's half of a whole, so finding that balance. So, Madison, do you have a favorite book or website or blog that you could share for folks to learn more about some of what you've learned about on your journey?
Mm-hmm. I'm really loving Katy Bowman's stuff right now. She has a podcast that I've been listening to, and she's hilarious. So it's really entertaining to listen to. It's really informative, and they talk about just weird, crazy things. It's great. She has a bunch of books about natural movement, and that's what I love about it. It's more like a get out and do and squat and go back to the movements that we kind of lost in the shuffle of coming to this century and sitting and doing and working. And I'm working on her diastisis recti book now, which is amazing. And then Jessie Mundell, of course, my postnatal mentor, her blog is super body awareness focused. She's incredible. She talks about really raw, honest stuff, and I love it.
That's great. Thanks for sharing those. And then what about you? Do you have any products or services that you're excited about and want to share with anyone watching?
Yeah, I just relaunched my Strong Like a Mom online coaching program. So now I'm doing this training. It is programming through all stages of pregnancy and into postpartum as well. I have a core and floor recovery program there, and everything is tweaked for your stage of pregnancy and postpartum. It's group coaching, so there's an amazing community of women in there, and the conversations are awesome. We're talking about body awareness today in light of this, so...
I love that. That's great. Yeah, so definitely, I love that it's online because it makes it nice for moms all over to reach you, right? Because it's on, online coaching.
It's online, super easy, 30-minute workouts. So that was kind of what I fashioned it as. It fits into your life.
Yeah. Yeah, because new moms and busy moms definitely don't always have time to go out to the gym. So it's great.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you want to get in touch with Madison, you can get on her website, madisonsmamas.com, and find out about her Strong Like a Mom program. I love those. I love the words. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram at Madison's Mamas also, which I will put the spelling down below the video or below the audio so that you can find that. So thanks so much for joining me today, Madison. It was really nice to talk with you.
Thanks, Beverly. It was awesome.
All right. So then I wanted to talk a little bit about prenatal and postpartum body awareness. So I guess the first question I would have is what are some of the mistakes that are being made currently with prenatal fitness, pelvic floor health, and maybe postnatal too, but anything that comes to mind for you. I'm sure you're aware of a lot of different mistakes.
Yeah, I think it's misguidance more than it is mistake. I feel like there's not that there's the information is getting there. There's a lack of information in general surrounding prenatal and postpartum fitness. And I think in prenatal, it's if you were doing what you were doing before, it's fine to do it now. It's fine to push that hard now. And while for some bodies that's totally fine, for other bodies who are really, really super competitive and will just power through it, which I was that way with my second pregnancy, so I can totally relate to that. It's more of a listening and then putting that into action, listening and actually doing something about it. You can't just keep pushing yourself that hard. Women need to understand that diastisis recti is really normal in pregnancy, and it happens to almost everybody by the third trimester, and that they should be careful about that. People need to know postpartum that crunches, leg lifts, those kinds of things are not going to make their belly flat again. And I think what's going on now with where postnatal exercise is more of a get your body back mentality, which I'm not a fan of. I think I've told so many people your body is going to change and it's supposed to change. You grew a human, you birthed a human, however that happened. It's not going to go back to pre-pregnancy because you aren't pre-pregnancy. You've been pregnant. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like getting that message out there and telling people that it's okay that they look different, that it's okay that their bellies are squishy and that their bellies are different and that their bodies are different, their hips are bigger, their breasts are bigger. Mm-hmm. It's fine. And fitness is not what's going to fix it. Fitness is going to make their lives a little bit better, and it should be tailored to what they need because they're picking up kids, they're lifting and carrying things, and that's what their fitness needs to be doing for them, is helping them be strong in those movements.
What kind of response are you getting from women when you explain to them like that their body is different and that their boobs are bigger and their belly is going to hang out a little bit? What kind of response do you get?
From a lot of them, I get acceptance. From some, I get pushback.
Sure.
From myself, sometimes I get pushback. It's really hard to accept that all the time, that my stomach was never flat to begin with, but that my stomach will never be flat, or that my hips will always be this big, that I may never fit into my pre-pregnancy pants. It's hard to accept those kinds of things, especially in a time like postpartum when everything you're not in control of anything anymore. Yeah. And your body, you want to be in control of at least your body, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the response is good for a lot of moms, but you have to tailor the words for the person because sometimes it can come with a lot of negative feelings, negative reactions, and kind of having to go back to asking the person why they feel so attached to the way that they used to be, that the way that they used to look, and kind of getting deep into that, while very emotional, can give you a little insight as to what might be going on mentally behind that. And then that can lead you to kind of a breakthrough to, okay, now we're starting to get there and to understand that it's okay to be in this body.
Yeah, let me just put this down a little bit. Yeah, I feel like you're dealing with issues postpartum that were there before even being pregnant. So sometimes, yeah, I know like once you become a mom, sometimes then you're a little more willing to maybe deal with some of that or acknowledge it. Or I know for me, I found it very liberating that my abs are like completely completely demolished or whatever, because I never was able to get a six pack or like get that perfect look anyway. And now it's like, oh, I have a nice excuse. Like,
Yeah.
that no six pack here. I had a baby.
I
But
love
I
that.
mean, you certainly see moms that are able to get that six pack look before and after, which is nice. But I feel like probably the majority are not not achieving that type of a goal.
Right. And I feel like that's challenging for a lot of moms is what they're introduced to in the social media or who they follow or what they're seeing. That was an issue for me going back to work as a trainer and as a trainer who gained weight breastfeeding. I was just like seeing all these six packs. I cannot do this because I don't look like that. I've never looked like that, but right now I'm really struggling with it because everybody else is doing it and why can't I?
Yeah.
And I feel like there need to be more people who are honest about what postpartum bodies look like because postpartum bodies don't look like six pack abs most of the time. Sometimes they do, and that's fine. But every single body is different. Every single body comes with things that they're not happy about and things that they love. And I think we just compare too much to other people, other people's truths, other people's lives, or what it depicted as, other people's bodies, whether that's the angle that the picture is taken at or whatever. It's hard to get past that. And so I tell a lot of people who are struggling with it, just unfollow people that make you feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that I I definitely I admire you for how much you share about yeah, your experience, and I definitely want to share mine a little bit more. I've even had some pushback already though from my own industry. Like I've talked to colleagues of mine who've never had babies, and I mentioned, and they're like, "Well, we'll just put coconut oil on it, put shea butter on the stretch marks," and I'm like, "You're not hearing me. I'm saying that I don't care. Like I'm okay with the stretch marks. I'm okay with the floppy belly. My son lays on me and cuddles into it. Like it's amazing." And they're like, "But you can make it better." And I'm like, "You don't understand. Like I don't want to make it, but
It
it
doesn't always have to be about change, you know? I feel like for me, embracing bigness as it relates to my body was a huge thing for me. I did the bigness project for a couple of weeks with Jen Singler, and just the theory behind taking up space was like, oh, I can take up. I don't have to be smaller all the time. I can take up space, and it's okay. Was a huge breakthrough for me because we are always told as women that we need to be smaller, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally or mentally, whatever that may be. It's always a be smaller message. And I think that that's doing a disservice to women completely. We need to change the conversation, which we're doing now.
that's great. I'm so honored to be walking alongside you on that journey. And so the other question I wanted to ask you about is, so what are some of the cues that you give women to help with diastasis recti and with pelvic floor strengthening? Like, what are some of the important cues or teachings that you're delivering?
Mm-hmm. The biggest one I do is the core and floor connection breath, which is basically a very deep diaphragmatic breath. And as you exhale, you lift the pelvic floor up and in and draw the hip bones a little closer together. Try to feel activation from the transverse abdominis. But I come from if they're having issues with their diastasis or their pelvic floor, then it kind of all goes back to posture and alignment in their daily life, making sure that they're doing the menial tasks that they need to be doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing if their glutes are always contracting, or if they're standing with their hips forward of their rib cage, which is going to put pressure on the linea alba, or if they're standing with their hips behind the rib cage, which is going to lengthen that whole thing out and not be able to connect to it well. It's those kinds of things that I talk to my clients about because those kinds of things do matter. I do want people to move freely, obviously, but when we're dealing with symptoms in the belly or pelvic floor, it's important to tune in, to fine tune a little bit, and then to take some time to actually do the breathing exercises and the self-care, work on the glutes. I'm a huge fan of glutes right now because they really do help keep the pelvis stable, and it can make a huge difference in pregnancy when you're dealing with hip pain, back pain,
Mm-hmm.
all those kinds of things. So posture and the core plus floor connection breath is something essential that I coach everybody to do.
Awesome. That's great. Is there anything else that you want to share about prenatal, postnatal work or your approach or anything you think people should know?
No, I think it's just I learn something new every day, and I talk to so many awesome moms. Part of the my favorite part of this job about what I do is talking to women about birth, about their births in particular, how they happened, how they feel about them, and then how that translates into their postpartum, whether they're dealing with pain or symptoms or what have you. You know, just getting to know moms and their stories is incredible.
Mm, yeah, it's such a special time.